Oh, what an exciting time of year it is. The NFL season's about to begin. Hooray! Hooray! Yes! Awesome stuff. And I'm sure some of you might even be happy that I'm talking about the NFL. Yay! Hooray! The season's almost here. Hot shit! Now, some of you may be disappointed because I'm not doing team-by-team previews of the 2016 NFL season, but due to time constraints and lack of desire to do 32 separate videos, I'm just going division by division. I still touch on the major important points for each of the 32 teams and do a quarter of the videos. Seems more sensible to me, and I could maybe cram in some other content on this channel in its place, which is what I would rather do. So that's what I'm going to do. Give synopsises of a couple of minutes in length of each team in each division, one division at a time. And you guys are welcome to chime in with your thoughts and comments, predictions. Tell me how I'm great. Tell me how I'm stupid. I'll pay more attention to the comments that say I'm great. You know how this deal works by now. I most certainly forgot. Hope so. Some of you have probably known me for 6 years, and occasionally people that have known me outside of the YouTube world years past watch me. You guys have known me even longer too, and all my annoyances and everything else. All right, so let's kick off with the AFC West, shall we? And I look at this division, and I think this is going to be a really interesting horse race this year, with three teams really being able to potentially stake a claim to being the one that's going to stand tall at the end of the year. I think there are three teams that you can make the argument for that are in the playoff mix, that if they don't win the division, they could be right there in the wild card race. And then you've got the San Diego Chargers. You know, you look at three of these teams, and I think you can make an argument for each of them potentially winning this division. You have the up-and-coming Oakland Raiders, the defending Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos, who, while in a bit of a period of transition at the quarterback position and some of the other losses they've had on the roster, they've still got some of the right guys in the right places where they could make another type of run this year, especially with that defense. And you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, who kind of just fly under the radar, while people are paying attention to the defending Super Bowl champion Broncos and whether Trevor Simeon's going to be the guy or if and when it's going to be the Paxton Lynch show this year. And the Oakland Raiders, with all the buzz and excitement that young nucleus that Reggie McKenzie has assembled, has created. You got the Kansas City Chiefs that just kind of go along and find ways to win games and, you know, might be the steadiest, most consistent presence in this division this year. And then you've got the San Diego Chargers. Now, I don't want to gun on the San Diego Chargers too much, but let's be honest. This Chargers organization is not in a good place. It's an organization that thought maybe they were going to be the one to move to LA first, and it didn't happen. And you wonder why a city wouldn't really want to deal with them. Look at the way the organization conducts their business. They reach a bit, in my opinion, to draft Joey Bosa, number 3 overall, where he is a questionable fit schematically in their 3-4 defense. And then after drafting the guy, where they may have been able to trade back and get him a couple of picks later, where there are better players on the board, they still took him. Then they decide they want to play hardball for no particular reason whatsoever. I understand in the business world, you're trying to get as much leverage as you can, both from the organization side and from the player side. But when you're trying to go on these major sticky points about when guaranteed money is paid out, and also trying to get offset language, pick one or the other. And if you've got to sit there and you've got to argue about the guaranteed money, not the amount of the guaranteed money, but when it's paid out, that suggests that there may be deeper-seated problems within that organization, as in the funds are a little bit dry. When you see that, you start to think that. When you look at this Chargers team, though, this is an organization that is wasting the last remaining quality years of Phillip Rivers, and that's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. When you look at this division, you look at the Raiders, the Chiefs, the Broncos. Honestly, why would you get excited about the Chargers' chances? What chance do they really, really have? I mean, you've got a team that, to me, failed to really address their deficiencies on the offensive line, have major questions in the running game, you know, because first-round pick from last year, Melvin Gordon, most certainly didn't play like a first-round pick, and I don't know if he's going to be a whole lot better this year. You know, you bring in Travis Benjamin via free agency. You get Keenan Allen back from the kidney injury. So you've got a little bit better at wide receiver, but there's still not incredible depth there. And then you lose Ladarius Green to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Antonio Gates isn't a spring chicken anymore. How is second-round pick Hunter Henry going to fit into the mix, and how is he going to produce right away? You got a lot of questions on offense in all different areas of the ball surrounding Phillip Rivers. That's not good. You know, with Phillip Rivers at this stage of his career, you should be able to feel confident in the Chargers being able to roll out there and be able to score points with everybody and anybody at any time and win games solely because of their offense. And maybe once in a while they can do that, but they can't do it on a consistent basis, which is a shame. Because Rivers is a borderline Hall of Fame player, but they haven't surrounded him with the type of talent to really put him in a situation where he can really thrive. Defensively, you've got some questions, I think, in terms of their ability to stop the run. Frankly, I think in terms of their ability to rush the passer. And they have some questions in terms of the depth of their secondary. They got questions all over. I really want to see how they deploy Joey Bosa on the defensive side of the ball. I do like their linebackers some. I think their linebackers, both inside and outside, can have a nice year. But you just look at this Chargers team, and too many questions on the offensive side of the ball, too many questions on the defensive side of the ball, too much talent and steadiness throughout the rest of the division. This team, in theory, should be bringing up the butt-naked rear of this division by a good margin. And then, to me, it really comes down to which of the three teams between Kansas City, Oakland, and Denver are going to be the ones that stand tall at the end of the day. You start with the Oakland Raiders. And this is the popular team that everybody's jumping on the bandwagon of. And you can see why. Early on, the reign of Reggie McKenzie in Oakland was not good. First-round pick DJ Hayden, anybody? But, a funny thing happened. After the disaster that was the Roger Saffold contract that wasn't, all of a sudden, it's like a light bulb went off, and Reggie McKenzie started to figure out. You get Khalil Mack to fall into your lap 5th overall because other teams, namely the Houston Texans, are morons. Then you get Derek Carr in the 2nd round. You get other solid players out of that draft class. Then you go to the next year's draft and you get a guy like Amari Cooper, who wasn't my number 1 wide receiver on the board, but to me, like I said before, and leading up to that draft, he had to be the pick for the Raiders. He was the perfect pick for the Raiders. You look at some of the other guys that they put in place on both sides of the ball. This is a team with a young, exciting nucleus. I think it's been proven that at least in year 1, Jack Del Rio was a solid fit there for them in Oakland. And when you see a young quarterback who progressed a bit from year 1 to year number 2, you try to envision how he could progress from year 2 to year 3. There's a lot of reasons to be excited about this Oakland Raiders team. There really, really is. I mean, you've got one of the top 3 or 4 defensive players in all of the National Football League in Khalil Mack. You've got a potentially long-term marquee combination at quarterback and wide receiver in Derek Carr and Amari Cooper. If they can get a more consistent play out of Latavius Murray, this could be a really, really good, exciting offense. They had those flashes of it last year. They could have even more of it this year. On the defensive side of the ball, they brought in some nice veterans that I think could do well for them. It sucks they just lost Mario Edwards for about half of the season. But I have some questions about that secondary. They got Emerson last year, and he played well. I love the pick of Carl Joseph in the 1st round. It's just a bowling ball of fucking machetes and physicality and awesomeness. You want to think about a modern type of Jack Tatum, George Atkinson type of defensive back in Oakland. Carl Joseph is that type of Raider defensive back, that type of Raider safety. He could bring an identity to that defense. There's a lot of reasons to be excited about this team. When you look at their schedule, to me, there's 2 stretches that you really got to watch, and they really are in the first, 2/3 of the season. You look at weeks 1 through 5, they go to New Orleans, host Atlanta, then what is it? They're at Tennessee, at Baltimore, and they host San Diego. So in that mix, you've only got 1 divisional game, but 3 of their first 5 are on the road. If this Oakland Raiders team could find a way in those first 5 weeks to sit there and go maybe 3-2, I'm not talking about going undefeated, getting crazy here, or even 4-1, just 3-2, or even at that point 2-3, that would be a solid start for this Raiders team. And then you look at it a little bit later on, week 9, and then after the bye, 11 through 13, they've got, 4 straight home games, I believe it is. They host Denver, Houston, Carolina, and Buffalo. Now, while the talent of the teams they'll be facing is better than the ones weeks 1 through 5, that's a 4-game stretch. If the Raiders can hold fort and go 3-1 in that stretch, they very possibly could win this division. It's really, to me, those two stretches, the way they start off the season and the way they hold forward at home in that 4-game stretch of home games in a row. If they can handle business there and come out of both of those stretches with winning records, this is a team that I think can win this division. I don't know if it's 2016, that's the year though. They may be 1 year away, but I could see why a lot of people are getting excited. I've been burned in the past by the Raiders trying to say, hey, they're going to come up with surprising people this year, and then they don't. So maybe that's part of my reservation. But I do think this is a good team improving, and the needle is definitely pointing upward. You look at the Denver Broncos. You talk about the defending Super Bowl champions. Yes, they've lost quite a bit of talent off of that team in the past couple of years. This is still a team with quite a bit of talent. Now, obviously, you're going to have a lot of questions about the quarterback position, what Trevor Siemian is going to mean to that organization, if and when Paxton Lynch is going to become the guy this year, and what he's going to do once he takes the reins. You look at this team, though, and you say, if you're ever a team that can afford some uncertainty at the quarterback position, kind of figure it out as you go. You look at the Denver Broncos and that defense. You've got Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, and you've got some adequate depth behind them on the edge, and Shaq Barrett and Shane Ray. A defensive line that's solid and underrated. Arguably the best 1 through 3 trio of corners in all of the National Football League, and Talib and Chris Harris and Bradley Roby. There's a lot of talent there still on the especially defensive side of the ball. This can still be an elite defense. Now, I have some concerns on the offensive side of the ball with the quarterback situation, with their running game. They're going to need C.J. Anderson and Devontae Booker to be a really nice 1-2 combination. Maybe Capri Bibbs gets in the mix a little bit. This is a team early on in the year, in 2015, really struggled to run the ball. With Kubiak and the system they're going to run, and whoever they have at quarterback, they need to be able to run the football. If this team can run the football, they've got still the makings of an elite defense. This is a team that can still do something. I do have concerns about that offensive line. Even bringing in somebody like a Russell Okung, I think, was enough to ease my concerns about their abilities, both as a run-blocking unit and as a pass-blocking unit. And in terms of defensively, I mean, they may take a small step back this year because I do have concerns about the middle of that defense. I'm not a huge fan of their safeties. I think the Danny Trevathan loss will hurt at least a little bit. But this, I still think, could be a top-flight defense. So if you're the type of person that believes in defense and running the football, you might think that the Denver Broncos could win this division again this year and go back to the playoffs. And there's a very strong possibility they could. I think right now, though, the safe money is on the Kansas City Chiefs. This is the most intact team, the most cohesive team. You've got a team that has a top-flight defense, a team that can definitely run the ball, a team that, unless Andy Reid gets his hands on the game management late in the game, doesn't tend to shoot itself too much in the foot, unless you're Jamal Charles late in the game on Thursday night against the Denver Broncos, and you fumble the ball inside of your own 20 in a Week 2 matchup. This is a team that tends not to shoot itself in the foot. It's a team that tends to do a lot of things adequately, and for them, adequately produces a winning record and puts them in the playoff mix. They're one of those teams that doesn't have a lot of sex appeal, but they can get things done. Now, you look at them, you see a top-flight defense, a team in theory that should be able to run the ball, with guys like Jeremy Maclin and Travis Kelce. They've got more explosiveness and big playability out of the passing game than they have in the early part of Andy Reid's tenure there in Kansas City. But I've still got some concerns and some questions. First and foremost is, are they going to get a healthy, productive season out of Jamal Charles? It was impressive to see how well the Chiefs played late in the year and, making it to the divisional round of the playoffs without their best player, arguably, in Jamal Charles. They need Jamal Charles to be healthy. They need Jamal Charles on the football field because with some of the other talent they have on the outside in Maclin and Kels, if you've got Jamal Charles, that's another big explosive weapon for the Kansas City Chiefs offense, for an offense that desperately needs any and all explosiveness they can get from anywhere. Because in general, this is not an incredibly explosive offensive team. I think defensively, in some ways, although they could be a little better more consistently against the pass, I think defensively they have enough of the goods enough of the time to be able to win a Super Bowl with that defense. I don't know if they have a good enough defense where you can win a Super Bowl because of that defense. Sometimes the Kansas City Chiefs can be a little misleading because over the past couple of years, when they've had good years, they've kind of beaten up on lesser teams. They haven't beaten a lot of quality teams. They've taken advantage of soft spots in their schedule. Hey, you play who you're scheduled against. You beat who you're scheduled against. You're going to do good things, and that's what the Kansas City Chiefs do. But at the end of the day, this is a team that I don't think, like the Denver Broncos, can win in spite of their quarterback like they did last year with Peyton Manning's bum ass at the end of his career. The Broncos won not because of Peyton Manning, but in large part in spite of Peyton Manning. I don't know that the Kansas City Chiefs have the same formula, have the same talent level and same ability, same defense that can win in spite of their quarterback. And at the end of the day, you have to question with the Chiefs whether or not this is a team that could really truly be a championship contender with Alex Smith as their quarterback. You just wonder. Because he's not going to be a guy that sits there and really stretches the field vertically. He's a guy that's going to protect the ball. He's a check down king. He can run with the ball some. I mean, he has some dual threat to him. It's an underrated element of his game. But sometimes the problem is I think Alex Smith, underrates that element of his game himself and does not take over the game with his feet nearly as much as he should. If you're not going to be able to bomb the ball or willing to bomb the ball 40 yards down the field, you got to find other ways to open up the defense and make them pay. And one way to do that is by running the ball more consistently. And I look at this team, and I sit there and I really, really wonder. It's going to be really interesting for me come to close to the end of the season, weeks 14, 15, and 16. They've got 3 straight home games. They host Oakland at Arrowhead in week 14. Then they've got Tennessee in town, and then they've got Denver in town. So, if this divisional race is close the last few weeks of the year, you have the Oakland Raiders coming into Arrowhead. You have a chance to defend your home field and beat them there. You've got that dangerous trap game with a young, exciting quarterback in Marcus Mariota, sandwiched right in the middle that could spell all types of trouble. And then you've got the Denver Broncos, a team that for the most part the Chiefs have really struggled to beat over the past few years. They've been in the mix a lot of times, and at the end of the day, they just can't get the job done. It's going to be interesting to see at the tail end of the season what this Chiefs team does. As I'm handicapping this division, I do think San Diego is clearly the lesser of the 4 teams by a wide margin. I've got them 4-12, maybe if I'm being generous, a 5-11 team. They very well could be banging it out for a top 5 pick in the 2017 NFL Draft. When I'm handicapping this and I look at Kansas City, Oakland, Denver's the defending Super Bowl champions. They have the best defense in the league. Or, I don't want to say in the league, in the division, excuse me. But they, to me, have the most questions at the quarterback position, and that does matter. And at the end of the day, even with guys like Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, I'm not sure that this is quite a playoff team this year. They could be because of that defense. And if they can run the ball more consistently than they did throughout 2015, they could prove me wrong and win 11, 12 games and win that division. I just don't know if I'm sold enough on Trevor Siemian or Paxton Lynch in 2016 or the combination of both of them leading this team to the playoffs. I think they could be in the mix for a wild card throughout the season. I think anything more than expecting 9-7 out of the Broncos may be pushing it. When I look at the Oakland Raiders, I think they're not quite the defense, obviously, of the Denver Broncos. I think they've got some of the similar pieces in place on offense to the Broncos. I think they're much more settled and much more proven and much more exciting and dynamic at the quarterback position with Derek Carr. They don't quite have the championship experience and the playoff experience of the Denver Broncos. And sometimes the only way you get that is to get there. I'd like to see the Raiders get to the playoffs this year. I think it'd be really good for them and put that organization in a tremendous amount of power position and leverage when it comes to trying to get a new stadium from Las Vegas or from Oakland, getting those places to bid against each other to give the Raiders the best stadium package for once. But I think it might be a year away from this team winning the division. I've talked about it for the past couple of years that by 2017, I thought the Raiders were going to be in a position where they could own, run, and dominate this division. And I think that plan has very much come into play. And I wouldn't be surprised if that started this year. When you look at the mix of talent, and you look at what they have at quarterback and in other places on the roster, what Reggie McKenzie has quietly done over the past couple of years, this is the team that should run this division for a number of years. But I think this year, the safest pick, the most consistent pick, has to be the Kansas City Chiefs. They've been in the mix the past few years. They're the most intact team compared to previous years. They've got a good formula of defense and running the football, and in general, not making a ton of mistakes. I think the Raiders finish somewhere like 9-7, maybe 10-6. I think the Chiefs can finish around 11-5 and win this division. After that, same story as every year. How far are you going to go with Andy Reid as your coach and Alex Smith as your quarterback? But in terms of the regular season and winning this division, to me, I think the Kansas City Chiefs are the favorites and will be the ones that win the AFC West in 2016.